there. Welcome to Honey, I Shrunk the Kitsch. We have almost completed our Christmas mouse house, but we still need to turn it into an advent calendar. This clock happened to come with a drawer at the bottom that I had thought would be perfect for keeping all the little accessories to mark the different days of the Advent season. And it's a pretty good sized drawer. It's 10 inches wide, as you can see, 7 inches tall, and it's pretty deep. So I feel like we should be able to section this off. However, when I went to give it a try, I realized that plan wasn't going to work out too well. Take a look at this. I had thought that I would use these toilet paper rolls, wrap them up, kind of like a Christmas popper, and give the kids something to open each day of Advent. But as you can see, I can only fit 24 of them in this drawer. Actually, having 24 spaces would be perfect for a lot of families making an advent calendar. A lot of the ones that you see on the market or on Pinterest have 24 spaces so that you can count out down each day from December 1st to December 25th. But in our family, we really need an advent calendar that counts down the liturgical season. So, counting all 4 Sundays that fall prior to Christmas Day. And also, we would like it to also include the 12 days after Christmas, going all the way to Epiphany on January 6th. So, needless to say, I need a lot more spots. I'm going to fill up this with some different packages that just hold the accessories for some of our different feast days and some of our other different special activities that we do during the Advent season. And I think that that's going to work out pretty well. So now let's get started on the exterior. I would like for this clock to give just a hint from the outside that it is based off the Twas the Night Before Christmas. So I'm going to need to cover up these flowers. Love them, but they're very spring. So I've got some green and blue here. I'm going to use that to do kind of a stippling effect over it. It will probably look a little scary at first, but I'm not afraid of a challenge. So here's the first layer of green. Like I said, very scary, but it's doing a pretty good job covering up these watercolor flowers. And because this is inspired by the Twas the Night Before Christmas book that has these great watercolor illustrations with kind of fuzzy edges, I'm bringing the color almost all the way to the border. And then I'm going to add in my next color. I think some of this, I think it's phthalo blue, is just what I have on hand, but I think that will get it closer to the dark teal that's on the clock face that I'm trying to match. And it did. I didn't record that part, but I wanted to add some gray as well. And I'm liking this effect, but now I need to add some wording to it. And I am not that talented with a paintbrush, so I'm going to get my Cricut on it. I've already measured the area that I need to cover. And so when I get on my Cricut, I'm going to make a rectangle in those dimensions to lay out my wording design on, just for me, just to help me visualize it. So for me, that's going to be about 18 inches tall by 9 inches wide. And now that I have that basic frame, I'm going to go ahead and search for some wording that I can use. The nice thing about Cricut is they already have a bunch of designs pre-made in just about whatever you can imagine. So just for the phrase "'twas the night before Christmas," I have several options here to choose from. So I'm going to try this one out. You can see I'm changing the material color to yellow, and then I can just resize it so that I like the way that it's laying on my rectangle, like so. And this is where I called in some help from one of my miniature assistants to see what other designs we might like. And she suggested stars, specifically these, so we went ahead and added that to our design, changed the material color again to yellow. It doesn't really matter what material color you choose, as long as all the ones that you will want to be cut from the same material are the same color. Um, so since we're going to do everything in gold, I'm just making everything yellow to help me visualize. So back to our designs, I also wanted a little silhouette of a Santa on a sleigh being pulled by reindeer. So we have plenty of options for that. And after trying a few out, I decided on this one that has kind of a curve to it. So from there, we really just need to play around with positioning and looking to see how it's going to look once it's all laid out on our blue painted surface. I like that I'm able to rearrange to see if I want the stars at the top or Santa at the top. We eventually decided that we wanted our wording to be centered, so we're going to do that. And sometimes minimizing it will help as well to give you a good kind of bird's eye view. By doing that, we realized, we don't really like the lettering as much, so we can try out some different ones. That one, my mini assistant thought might be too busy. But we tried this one, and I think that one is both clear and has kind of the vintage look to it that we're going for. So let's give that a shot in that space. Yeah, it's decorative, but still pretty clear. It's pretty easy to read. There isn't a lot of overlapping letters going on in this one. So once that is centered, we decided there was just a little bit too much dead space. So we decided to fill in with just some randomly placed snowflakes. Another trick you can do when you have a grouping like this is you can go into where it's grouped in the layers tab to the right and select individual images. So each of these snowflakes I can select and copy and paste and just use that to kind of randomly scatter some snowflakes throughout our image. So I actually put my miniature assistant in charge of that. And I think that looks terrific. So now I'm going to move away my black rectangle that I was using just for spacing. I like the way everything is laid out. So now I need to group it so I can print it. If I don't do this, Cricut is going to rearrange things to take up the least amount of vinyl when it goes to cut. So instead, I'm going to group things in 12-inch sections. The mats that I have for my Cricut are 12 inches by 12 inches. So I want it to print out a panel just like that so that I'll be able to weed it out and keep everything spaced correctly. Now, speaking of spacing, transfer tape is going to be pretty critical to getting my design laid out the way I had it on my Cricut Design app. So I've taken some transfer tape, I've unstuck it and stuck it again so it won't be quite as sticky, and marked the exact center. And now I am going to lay that over my two weeded panels, matching up the center to where I want the center of the design to be. And then after I have transferred the vinyl to the transfer tape, I can burnish it off of the transfer tape and onto my surface. Just a moment here to appreciate the peel, finally taking the transfer tape off and having our beautiful vinyl lettering on, just where we wanted it. But are we done yet? Absolutely not. We need to do the inside of the door now. So let's go back into Canva where I have typed up a list of all the days between the first Sunday in Advent, which will be November 30th this year, all the way through the 12th day of Christmas, which is always January the 6th. So while I'm looking for some little decorations to kind of jolly up this list I have going on here, I want to clarify real quick my intentions for this Advent calendar and why I've created it to cover such a long period of time. And the reason is that essentially the season of Advent is really a season of anticipation. So, a countdown calendar or a tradition of lighting candles on a wreath or reading a Bible story every day are just different ways that Christians might build up their anticipation for Christmas Day and the coming of Jesus. And there's so many different ways to have that joy and anticipation. And for some people, it's about they feel a lot of anticipation when they're surprised or when they're going to do something new or something that they don't often get to do. And for other people, that might feel a lot more like anxiety, and they would find joy and anticipation if there's a lot of preparation and they know when things are going to happen and what it's going to look like and what we're going to do, and also when it will be over. So that's why I thought of making something that would extend not just our plans for Advent, but our plans for after Christmas. When is the Christmas tree going to come down? How long do we have to enjoy the train going around the Christmas tree before it will be time to pack it up and bring it out again next year? And for people who experience a lot of joy and anticipation through preparing for it, a lot of times I might think of a list like this and knowing what to expect and knowing what's going to happen when. But it also looks like play. And it looks like playing the same game over and over because we're excited for this really to happen. I'm going to pretend that it's Christmas morning every morning in December because I'm so excited. And it can also look like I'm going to pretend it's Christmas morning again the next day and again because those are great memories. And I really enjoyed that. And so I had wanted to make this Christmas dollhouse as an advent calendar so that we know what to expect, but also an advent calendar so that we get to experience the joy of it. And so that's why I'm going through and on this advent calendar on this list, I have some things that are written out as sentences, just like this is the first Sunday in Advent, so we're going to light one purple candle. And then we can see that, and even a few days before or a few days after, we can pretend that we're lighting the Advent calendar in the little mouse house because it's fun and it's exciting. And also, I'm leaving a bunch of these days blank because I don't have a plan for every day in Advent, and I don't have a plan for every day in Christmas. Usually the first several days after Christmas Day, I wander around in pajamas eating leftovers and cheese. And that's valid too. But that way if there's something that we want to add on, we've got room to do it. And if we don't want to add something on, we don't have to. So I'm just about done and I'm going to go ahead and print out this list here in just a minute. And then we'll bring that over to the Christmas mouse house and we'll start decorating. For this little bit of clockworks there towards the back, I cut out a picture of a clock that was from the book and I just used some glue dots to cover that up a little bit. And then I'm also going to use glue dots to stick up my Advent list. I know I could have made it more permanent, but since the dates of Advent change every year, I thought we'll just print it out and do it again next year if it works, or just use it as a play piece if it works better that way. So I'm just not doing it terribly permanently. However, that means that this is all done. So now I can take you on a tour. Come with me. At the top of our house, we have our little bathroom. Here's a little side table or occasional table I made to look like a postage stamp on the top. There's our compact made into a vanity and a bathtub and our dressing screen. And then my favorite feature, other than this cute little bell pull, is this little teacup elevator. So as you ride that down, and yes, it does really move. It's got a little tape measure here where if you press the button, it'll work on the pulley. And that's how we get through this imaginary house. But in the bedroom, we have another bell pull, cute little cross-stitched rug, and another side table. And then I added this window here so that at the appropriate time, the mice can look through their window and see the father of that house looking through his window to see what arose such a clatter. And then we have this bed. I made a little crazy quilt and a top sheet and two little pillows. So it's nice and cozy for a long winter's nap. And tucked underneath here, because we are very low on square footage, or I don't know how you say that for a dollhouse, square inchage. I don't know. Anyhow, there's not a lot of room. And so I made a trundle bed pull out for the two daughter mice. Um, they each get their own little quilt too. And then when it's not in use, it can tuck back in. But again, another little ring of a bell pull. And then you can take the teacup elevator down to the next floor, which is the kitchen. And I'm going to need to move a few things out of the way. This is the table with the Advent wreath already set up and the little stools that we're using, just to show you some of the detail that's in this little pie safe that we made. This teapot is from the Boston Tea Party Museum. And then this pie safe holds all kinds of little goodies. So we have at the top, obviously, some pies. This is a plate of cinnamon rolls, a little cherry pie that one of my kiddos made, and then I made a pumpkin pie, very important for the holidays. Then we also have some plates. We use Shrinky Dinks, and the kids designed different Christmas plates they thought would be pretty. And then when we shrank them, they ended up looking like hand painted ceramic plates. So those are really fun. We made a bunch of those. And I also made some water glasses with some hot glue and a plastic drinking straw, a couple little silica beads for ice cubes. And then in the bottom, my kids decided they needed some pantry staples. So we have cookies, of course, very important for the Christmas season. So I think those are Oreos made out of felt, which is very creative. And then over here is some popcorn that was made from little bits of styrofoam, and then they colored on it to make it look like popped corn kernels the mouse might collect. And this one contains cheese, of course, very important for mice. More craft foam cut into little cheese like shapes. And then this was really cute. They were reading that mice sometimes eat pine cones to keep their teeth not so sharp. As you can see, they obviously nibbled a hole for the elevator shaft. But and then we have our little Boston Tea Party teapot. And this little stove I got from an estate sale. I thought it was so cute. And once I pack up our food stuff, I'll put our furniture back in. This little table, I used bolts so that it would be bottom heavy. Nothing worse than setting a table and having it flip over because it's top heavy. And then for our seats, whoops, I just used some dresser knobs and decorated them with decoupage and some Christmas napkins to make them look like little Christmas stools. We decided that chairs would be difficult since the mice have tails. Um, all the female mice always did. And then, if you notice, Mr. Mouse has a pipe cleaner prosthetic that my daughter provided for him, which I thought was very sweet. And then on our last floor, we have our parlor, which has our fancy Christmas parlor furniture, and our fireplace, which doubles as their front door and leads to the mouse hole, where they might just see St. Nick. And I love that it has a chain to be a little doorbell, so that when they come through the mouse hole to their home, they can just ring the bell, just like this on their bell pull here. So that is the grand tour of the finished Christmas mouse house. And as much as I have loved working on this mini project for the past year, I know that we're going to love playing with it even more. If you're curious to know how I made any of the elements of this mini project, I have a playlist up on my YouTube channel. And as always, thank you so much for watching and joining me on these mini projects.